Welcome to Pulp, Mortem, the search for a lost science fiction classic.
Hello everyone, my name is Jake. Welcome to my channel. Please like this video, share it with all your friends, and subscribe. So that way you never miss these wonderful little videos that I make. Today we are talking about spooky stories, and we are going to discuss...
Who are you? What are you doing in my chair? Scared you again. But before the horror continues, let's talk about the author. John Keir Cross was a Scottish author born in Carluke, Scotland on August 19, 1914, and he died in 1967 at the age of 53. He was a very interesting fellow, leaving his first job as a clerk to become a bicycle traveling ventriloquist. His skills brought him some fame in the region, and he leveraged that into acting in amateur theater. Cross also possessed talent with the pen, and he became a journalist. His work was soon noticed by the BBC, and in 1935 he moved to London to write and produce for them. Cross consistently wrote radio, television, and film scripts, and is probably most well known for his work on Alfred Hitchcock Presents. His first book, Aspect of Life, was his autobiography. Now, one might scoff at writing your autobiography at 22 years of age, but he had such a wild and interesting life that the book was well received. Cross sometimes used the pseudonym Stephen McFarlane and mainly wrote children's books, though he did dip his toes into science fiction. Which brings us to The Other Passenger. Like the hero of The Other Passenger, one of the most effective pieces in this book, you suddenly feel beyond the yellow circle of your reading lamp there's something waiting to pounce. The bristles on the back of your neck rise up. A shiver runs down your spine. The Other Passenger is an original short story collection first published in 1944 by publisher John Westhouse. The collection I own is stories from The Other Passenger, including only 9 of the original 18 stories, reprinted in 1961 by Ballantine Books. It is 159 pages and originally cost 35 cents. The cover is by Richard Powers, and it's creepy and Powers. If you like his style, you'll like this. If you don't, well, at least this one is not 100% squiggly artsy nonsense. This edition I have isn't too hard to find online for around $10. Valancourt actually reprinted the entire collection in 2017, and you can find that used for the $25 range. Unfortunately, the original Westhouse edition, which I very much want, goes for like $200 online. Boo! When I first picked this novel, all I saw was terror and needlepoint and got excited. What I didn't see was stories from. A pleasant surprise. I do enjoy short story collections because you get a good picture of the author and what he can do. So let's talk about what I liked.
Stranger than you think.
It's dang good, so let's get that out of the way. It was published in 1944, but nobody knows how old these stories are because none of them actually appeared in any pulp or magazine. They all started here. So some of them could be, way back in the 30s. I think this is the reason why John Keir Cross is considered by many to be a forgotten or underrated author. So like I say, some of these may be written back in the 30s, and it definitely has the prose of the day. Now, some people kind of criticize Lovecraft or William Hope Hodgson, those era authors, as being stuffy, dated in their prose. It's a critique I don't share. I actually enjoy it, and it would apply here as well. I was actually shocked to learn that none of these appeared in any weird tales because you'd think they would.
Stranger than you think.
Many of these stories have a very similar structure. The stories open up with a first-person narrator, usually someone who is not a writer, and they say, I'm not actually a writer, but they feel like they have to share their account of the horrors or the horrible things they've seen or experienced. So it opens up with dread already built in. It's a clever technique. As the stories progress, the dread steadily builds until the twist or the reveal at the end. Sometimes these endings were quite dark, quite macabre. There were a few that were obvious and they were okay, but there were several of these stories and endings that were excellent, and I'm going to talk a bit about them right here.
Stranger than you think.
The eponymous Other Passenger is the last story here, and I believe it's the longest. I'll have to check that. I do believe it's the longest. And it tackles one of the most terrifying and, I think, underused tropes of horror, and that is the doppelganger.
That man's an imposter. That man is the imposter.
This story is so bizarre and disjointed that you're never certain of anything. You don't know if you can trust the narrator or if it's even the same narrator. It's funny, when reading The Other Passenger, I was getting serious Drood vibes by Dan Simmons. Now, I've talked about Dan Simmons' Drood several times on my channel, and for good reason. It's in my top 5 favorite books of all time. It's really, really good. And I was getting Drood vibes. And it wasn't just the potential doppelganger / potential unreliable narrator, but the feel of the story. They were so similar. Then while researching for this, I read that Cross wrote the ITV 8-part miniseries, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, that came out in 1960. Now, it's probably a coincidence. It probably is, but if I found out that Cross was the inspiration for Dan Simmons, I wouldn't be surprised. We go, you see, and with us goes always another passenger. He is beside us in every deepest action, and speaks through us in every fateful announcement. There is no escaping him or his influence. His voice whispers suddenly in the night. His presence intangibly lingers at our shoulder when we feel ourselves most alone. He is the man on the back, the secret sharer. He is the worm that dieth seldom in great sickness. Yet in all there is, I suspect, a terrible paradox. We do not hate him. We fear him, perhaps, but secretly, in our hearts, we still love him. He may be the worm. If he is brother worm. We go, and he, the other passenger, is always at our side. Always, 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 to the grave, and perhaps beyond it. There's no question in my mind as to why the entire collection was named after this story.
Stranger than you think.
Little House is probably the creepiest of all these stories. It opens with a traveling insurance salesman, another professional field that Cross worked in. His car is broken down on the outside of this wet, soggy Scottish village by the sea. He looks everywhere for a place to stay, but unfortunately is the Dundee Fair week, and so there's no room anywhere. Not just the inns, all the houses are filled. But at the very edge of town, he finds this run-down, dilapidated, kind of horrible-looking house. He knocks on the door, and he's met by a husband and wife, and they're kind of hideous, very run-down, kind of gross, not who you want answering the door, and they instantly turn him away.
Please let me stay the night. I can pay. I've nowhere else to turn.
No.
A sofa, a chair, the corner of a room, anything will do.
The couple whisper to each other. They argue quietly. Then finally they say,
Very well. We have an upstairs room. It will cost you £1.
£1? Are you out of your mind?
You want to bet or not?
Okay, I'll pay £1.
Aren't you guys thankful that I'm not attempting a Scottish accent through all this?
I'm back in a half hour or so while we get the room ready.
It's pouring outside, and it's nearly dark out. Can't I just wait in here?
No! We have to get the room ready. Come back later.
So he does step back and... So he does step out. Oh, you can see I got a special guest star here today. He does step out and he comes back later. And when he does, he meets the daughter of these creeps. Now, she is a dark, kind of shy young girl. But she soon begins... Stop hitting the microphone. But she soon begins... Stop hitting the microphone. She soon begins to warm up to the salesman. The daughter does. And this is here where you can see that he's acting... Nobody's even listening to this review anymore, George. It's here where you can see and appreciate Cross's love for children and children's literature, because he actually writes a really good kid.
Are you all alone up here with your folks?
No, my sister's in the backyard. She's in the little house.
Little house? Like a dollhouse?
Yeah, Daddy made it.
And so the salesman thinks, maybe I misjudged this terrible, greedy man. I mean, you can't be a total monster and still make a dollhouse for your children, like, right? I'm probably cold, wet, soggy. My car broke down. I'm just not having a bad day, and I misjudged this man. Okay, so the salesman goes upstairs for the night. Now, the room has a chill a dampness to it, and it's more than just physical. The man can't exactly put his finger on what's happening. Eventually, he slips into bed, and despite extreme fatigue, he can't sleep. He keeps getting chills, and he feels his skin crawling, and his mind is fabricating horror after horror, and sleep just eludes this man. Finally, just due to sheer exhaustion, the man falls asleep. The next morning, the salesman cannot wait to get out of this place, but before he goes, he sees the young daughter again.
Good morning, mister. Before you go, would you like to see my sister in the little house?
He sighs, then smiles, takes her hand, and say,
Of course I would. Lead the way.
Now, I won't spoil what happens next, but it is so creepy, and it's creepy on multiple levels. Like, the more you think of this story, the creepiness intensifies. You go like, oh, that's why, and that's why, Here's the thing that's made clear. Cross hated working in insurance. He hated the industry, he hated the greed, and underpinning this horrifying little story is the horror that can come from a heart seized by greed. This is a story you won't forget.
Stranger than you think.
Miss Thing and the Surrealists. Holy crap, this story was bonkers. I feel like me talking about this story here won't do it justice. You could have an entire lengthy book club discussion on just this short story. It's about a group of surrealists dabbling in all things surreal: art, music, expression, and of course, copious amounts of alcohol. Now, the problem with being a surrealist is you don't know if you're a true artist or if you just suck.
Give me one more look at the painting.
But amongst the number of this troupe, there was no doubt that Kalinsky was the real one. His work with the brush was sublime and all very, very surreal, an unmistakable, undeniable talent. But his greatest piece of art was his tiny home that was perched atop a apartment complex. The home was called Miss Thing. The doorknob that greeted you was a hand that you would have to clasp to turn and enter the home. The feet of the chair were actual waxen feet. The flower pots were, women's breasts. It was very strange, very quirky, and this tiny house was more than a house. It was almost a personality. It was faceless art, art without an audience, pure art for art's sake. And when the troupe was there was no doubt that Miss Thing was counted among them. Then something strange happens. Kalinsky suddenly and unexpectedly marries this sweet, kind, accepting religious girl named Vera. The troupe say she's not going to last. Like, she's not going to make it. There's no way someone as proper, as put together, God-fearing, and traditional, there's no way they can bear to live with a bunch of rowdy alcoholic savants. But she does. Vera defeats them with kindness and accepts them. She even accepts Miss Thing, such as it is. Believe me when I say, this story is
Wild.
Cross places you in the space that is probably alien to most people, but not to him. He was a traveling busker, because of course he was. And so he probably ran in these type of artistic circles. I could have lived in this weird little story for 200 more pages. It was great. And the end doesn't disappoint as well.
Stranger than you think.
What appalls me is that Cousin Julia had no one to leave her things to. No one except us, that is. Did she ever let you know how lonely she was?
Nobody in the family ever knew much about Julia. She was impossible to know.
The Glass Eye is the first story in this collection, and it's probably the strongest.
Let me show you something, Dorothy.
Oh, how horrible. What is it?
An eye. A glass eye.
There's this mystery with Julia, but William Shatner knows all, and he recounts the tale. You see, Julia is this lonely spinster who took her, I believe it's her godson, to a ventriloquist show. The star of the show is the great Max Collodi and his dummy George, and Julia is instantly smitten. Such a handsome man. She goes to all his shows. She fantasizes about a life with Max. She's infatuated. She's obsessed with this man. How could someone be so incredibly handsome?
Like hell.
Then she does something quite out of character for her. She writes him. It is a big step for her, a big, bold step. And to her surprise, he responds. Now, it's a tad aloof and politely dismissive, but, it's a response all the same. Eventually, with her persistence in writing and his good graces, Max Colautti agrees to meet with her, but he says just a 5-minute meeting. And after that, we could see going from there, but I will agree to a 5-minute meeting. Now, I'm going to spoil this story, okay? Spoiler alert. If you haven't read this and would like to, this is where you get off. That or this story does appear in Alfred Hitchcock Presents. I watched that episode in preparation for this video here. I think it's season 3, episode 1. It's free on Prime. That's where I watched it. Since Cross wrote the screenplay as well, it stays really close to the short story, though the short story is better. One of the more obvious changes is that in the short story, Julia is gaunt, all elbows, homely, with a long nose that's kind of red on the tip and constantly dripping at the end. I'm not complaining about the casting, but when you read this, you don't expect Jessica Tandy. Julia's nervous, but excited. She goes to Max Colautti's hotel room. It's very dark. The lights are turned down quite a bit. But she sees Max sitting at the table with his dummy, George.
Sorry, my dear, I'm sensitive to bright lights. You can imagine what the spotlights do to me every night.
They talk, and Julia and Colautti are hitting it off beautifully, much to her surprise and delight. Then abruptly, she stands to her feet. She can no longer contain herself. A lifetime of loneliness, coupled with infatuation, longing, and desire, force her forward just to touch him, just to see if this man so wonderful, so handsome, how could he even be real? Max Colautti falls off the chair at the slightest touch. He's looking up, still smiling, still handsome. A dummy. She screams in horror as the dummy George, the real Max Colautti, stands up, cries out in fear, rage, and shame, "Get out of here!" Julia freaks out, complete mental breakdown, and she attacks the fallen dummy. A glass eye is dislodged in the scuffle, in the violence, and Julia takes it with her. Max Colautti is never seen again. However, the narrator says that a friend of his went to a circus some years later out of town and saw a dwarf clown with a booming voice, talented yet very sad. The clown wore an eye patch. What an absolutely spectacular little story. Both the short story and the episode are great.
Stranger than you think.
What makes John Keir Cross so great is his use of subtext. Very few of these stories are just what you see on the face. The Glass Eye, for instance, not only took inspiration from Pinocchio, but also draws out elements of that story and plays them against each other. Max Colautti, Pinocchio, of course, was written by Carlos Colautti. The fact that Julia's nose is abnormally long, and obviously the most obvious correlation here is the puppet. But in this case, we don't have a puppet longing to be a boy. We have a man pretending to be a puppet. Most of these short stories in here have something to say, and sometimes what's implied in the subtext is more sinister than the words on the page. And now, the bad boy. I always strive to be as fair as I can when reviewing something. Even if I'm reading total garbage, I'm going to give flowers where it's earned. That being said, this review here is not going to be fair. And the reason why it's not going to be fair is this bad point I'm making, which isn't even a bad thing at all, but it is for this channel. This is not science fiction. Now, I found this in the science fiction section with a wild and wonky powers cover, so I'm off the hook. It's not my fault. But even calling it weird fiction, even that might be a stretch. I would say this fits more in a horror or a thriller. Probably more thriller than horror. Now, it's possible that the original collection of 18 stories, some of those had more fantastical elements, and so that one was obviously categorized as science fiction, so as a result this one's just kind of grandfathered in and those elements were just cut out. I don't know, I haven't read it, but I have to judge what I have right here in front of me. Everything in this book can be explained in the real world. I think one story potentially has a ghost, one, That being said, it's still great, it's still creepy, but as for finding a lost science fiction classic, I don't think so.
It's not fair.
The short story Lovers was written in a heavy Scottish accent. Heavy Scottish accent. To the point where I didn't understand things. Yet the way the man sat there beside her, quite joco, och, it was no canny, it was no canny. Well, Andrew boy, it's you for dram, and be damned to the tran for sterling for a whiley, and in I went, and cried the dame for a nip. Cried the dame for a nip. I'm pretty sure that's a crime. And then says I, quite per jink, per jink.
Because it's mind-boggling to you, yeah.
So what's the verdict? Personal collection. Told you this review wasn't going to be fair. I adore this little collection and highly recommend it, but I can't give it a top rank on a channel dedicated to discovering lost science fiction. But how spooky is it? It's time to dust off those PKE meters and let's find out. Nothing nightmare-inducing, but it has a delightfully eerie atmosphere throughout, with noteworthy pops. And that is my review of Stories from the Other Passenger. Tell me, have you read this or anything else by John Keir Cross? Let us know in the comments. As always, thanks for watching. I will see you all next time with Sand World.
Get out of here! Get out of here! Get out of here! Get out! Get out! Get out! Get out of here! Leave it!